Halloween is going to look a lot different in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Many haunt events have been canceled, and those that have opened have been heavily modified. But today, I want to highlight the 10 best haunts that I have ever experienced over the years. And I want to note that this list will include both seasonal and year-round haunts. Kicking off this list at number 10 is Dr. Frankenstein's Haunted Castle at Indiana Beach. While this walkthrough has no scare actors, it's incredibly long. The building doesn't look too big from the outside, but it took well over 5 minutes to complete. Most rooms have some sort of animatronic that triggers when you walk in, but 2 rooms in particular stand out. The first is a door room where you enter into this circular room with doors all around you. You then need to find your way out. Some doors lead back to the circular room, while others are dead ends. It's really confusing. And then the final room is one of the scariest effects I've ever experienced in any haunt. I don't want to spoil it, but it rocks. Number 9. Carnivus at Canobie Lake Park. Screamfest is a great Halloween event, and the best haunt by far is Carnivus. Themed to a haunted carnival, I love the atmosphere in this house. There's something undeniably eerie walking through abandoned arcades with flickering lights and quiet midway games. The haunt also includes some funhouse-style elements like a vortex tunnel and a mirror maze. And the actors are great too. Half the actors will try to hold conversations with you, which allows the other actors to catch you completely off guard with a jump scare. Number 8. Casona del Terror at La Feria de Chapultepec. La Feria isn't the most well-kept park, and that sort of helps with their haunted house since it looks really creepy. The walkthrough is surprisingly well themed, and the actors are absolutely terrifying. Not only are the actors extremely loud, but they are allowed to touch you. Yeah, you heard that right. And since I didn't understand the instructions at the start, my Spanish isn't very good, I didn't realize that was going to happen, so it really caught me off guard. Number 7. Ghost Ship at Morey's Piers. One of the rare year-round haunts in the US, Ghost Ship has a really cool location. Most haunts take place in an abandoned house, while Ghost Ship takes place on a haunted pirate ship, so it gives it a completely different aesthetic. This one was filled with very animated scare actors, and like the one at La Feria, the actors were able to touch guests. This was a much longer haunt than I expected as well. Number 6. Gasten Ghost Hotel at Liseberg. Imagine Disney making a haunt out of the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror's queue line. That's essentially what this haunt at Liseberg feels like. All of the actors are dressed as a front desk staff, bellhops, or chefs, and each room is themed accordingly. The scares were solid, but it was the atmosphere and level of detail that made this haunt stand out for me. One thing to note is that they require you to walk through this attraction in a conga line with your hands on the shoulders of the person in front of you, which was a little awkward if you weren't there with the group ahead of you. Number 5. House of Nightmares at Lund. Taking place in a traditional Victorian-style house, this haunt had a mix of animatronics and live actors, and sometimes the two occurred at the same time to really shock you. It felt like an improved version of the haunt at Indiana Beach that was earlier on this list. Number 4. Universal's Classic Monsters at Universal Studios Florida. One of the haunts at Halloween Horror Nights 2019, this was easily the scariest. This one had the most jump scares and the most aggressive scare actors. I also loved the detailed sets. But one of the most underrated aspects of this haunt that added to the creep factor was that the queue line brought you through the Shrine of the Purple Dinosaur, aka the abandoned queue line for A Day in the Park with Barney, which had all the lights turned off at night. Number 3. Ghostbusters at Universal Studios Florida. One of my favorite movies of all time is Ghostbusters, and Universal handled the IP extremely well. It was essentially a retelling of the first film, and that was perfectly fine by me. The less references to the latter films, the better. I was interested how scary they'd make a Ghostbusters haunt, since the film was always more of a comedy than a horror film, but they had a few very sudden jump scares. But it was more about the set design for me. The sets brought me through the most iconic scenes in the film. The effects, which were a mix of physical and projections, did a fantastic job bringing the story to life, and the actors portraying characters from the film were very convincing. Number 2. Mysterious Mansion in Gatlinburg. This haunt was almost destroyed in that bad wildfire a few years ago, and I'm glad it survived. It's a gem. 1. The atmosphere was top-notch. The house was decked out with theming, and it reminded me of those creepy houses from the old Scooby-Doo cartoons. 2. The scare actors were amazing. I think there are only 2 or 3 total, but they run throughout the house after you and are much less predictable than the scares in other haunts I've done. 3. This one isn't a straightforward haunt like others. This one is also a maze with all sorts of dead ends and hidden pathways in each room. This really heightened the sense you were trapped in a haunted house. That was a really cool element I haven't seen elsewhere. But coming in at number 1 is the Haunted Graveyard Lake Compounce. Most parks have about a half dozen haunts at their Halloween event. Lake Compounce does things differently by having 1 hour-long haunt. Yes, you heard that right, it's an hour long. The length is what really sets this attraction apart because you are completely immersed in the scares for such a long time. And the sheer amount of actors is impressive combined with a diverse mix of scary sets. I'm very fortunate to have this haunt just a day's drive away. So those are my top 10 favorite haunts I've ever experienced. What are your favorites? Do you agree with this list? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you gave this video a like and consider subscribing because there'll be a lot more amusement park and roller coaster videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.